Is the way the New York legislature gave itself a raise constitutional? To find out, you have to read Delgado versus New York. It's only 87 pages. Don't have time for that? I got you covered. This is TLDR, Too Long Didn't Read, Court of Appeals cases in 5 minutes or less, hopefully. This is going to be a challenge. It's a complicated case. This is the episode on the case of Delgado versus State of New York. This can be found at 2022 New York Slip Opinion 06538, published by the Court of Appeals on November 17th, 2022. This is a constitutionality question. It's a civil case. And the issue here is whether or not there has been an unconstitutional delegation of legislative authority by what the New York legislature has done here. The law that applies in this case, the important part, you actually have to look at the Constitution here. The New York Constitution, Article 3, Section 1 says that the legislative power of the government is vested in the Senate and the Assembly of New York. Only the legislature may pass laws, repeal laws, and present those bills that they pass, the laws they pass, to the governor for either veto or approval. Now, the question is, has the legislature abdicated its responsibilities legislatively and delegated them improperly to a commission? The facts here are, the legislature wanted to give itself a raise or wanted to consider whether they were inadequately compensated. But it's a bad look. It's politically unpopular to go back to your constituents and say, I gave myself a raise of 30% or 20%. But they felt like it'd been a really long time and they weren't getting the right kind of compensation. So they came up with an interesting idea. They said, instead of us giving ourselves a raise, which is what the statutes and the Constitution indicate should be done, we're going to create a commission and tell them that they have to answer a question. They have to investigate and answer a question. Are the legislators adequately compensated? And if not, consider what the recommendation should be for our adequate compensation. And then issue a report to the legislature. And the legislature at that point would have one of two options. Either they could veto the report and reject the recommendation, or they could do nothing, and the recommendations would have the effect and force of law. So they created this commission. The commission found that they were inadequately compensated, and they gave the legislators a raise. And then 4 plaintiffs filed a case saying that was unconstitutional delegation of the legislative authority to this commission. There's 3 different decisions here. There's the plurality decision saying it's okay. There's Judge Wilson's concurrence saying it's okay. And then there's a dissent by Judge Singas and Judge Garcia. The Canataro decision acknowledges that only legislators have the power to pass laws, and passing laws is an act of discretion. But they say also that the legislature can delegate, and there's been instances in the past where they can delegate to other agencies or authorities or commissions authority if they sufficiently cabin them in, that's the word they use, give them standards to govern the exercise of power, and if they're not giving them discretion on what the policy is, just on how to enact the policy. So here they say, well, the policy is, the legislature decided the policy should be that the legislators get paid adequately. That's the standard, that's the act of discretion that the legislator used. What we're giving them authority to do is to determine whether that's met, and if it's not met, how to meet it. So Canataro's decision says that it's okay because the policy determination was made, and they have 8 different factors they have to consider to determine what the reasonable, adequate compensation would be. So they say it's a valid delegation. The concurrence by Judge Garcia points to the fact that, concurrence by Judge Wilson points to the fact that there's judicial scrutiny. So they can apply heightened judicial scrutiny of what the results of the commission are, and that saves it. Both basically the plurality and the concurrence say that it's constitutional, but just barely. But then you get the dissent from Singas and Garcia, and they say this is not okay. They say this is an unconstitutional delegation. In particular, They don't like the fact that the governor is written out of this equation after it's passed. Now, the governor had a chance to veto the legislation creating the commission, but the way that the commission works is they create a report with their recommendation, and it goes to the legislature, and the legislature either can veto it or it becomes law. Once the commission makes a recommendation, the governor has no role, and that violates the presentment clause of the Constitution of New York. And additionally, they don't like the fact that what the commission does can repeal or replace or supersede. It's actually a supersede language. It supersedes any other statutes in the books. And the power to supersede or repeal laws is also reserved to the legislature, says the dissent. So that's Delgado versus State of New York. Ultimately, the plurality says the creation and use of this commission was constitutional, but just barely. Too long, didn't read, 5 minutes or less. Have a good day. If you like what you just saw and want to see more just like it, please hit like or subscribe to let me know.